action as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Thank you for joining us. Look at that, this action-packed episode of Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. On the show tonight, we have Claire Fox discussing the future of news in Britain. Graham Linehan joins us to talk about the impact of fighting against gender ideology. Jonathan Sacerdoti will be sharing his experiences this week before a seemingly hostile Foreign Affairs Committee, and has the latest on the Jew haters BBC News have been found to feature on its screens. And Kelly J. Keane is here in the studio. After our latest Let Women Speak event, I'm just going to let her speak. And we also have got loads of comedians and audience questions and a whole lot more. But first, the news with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. The top story tonight. The city of Vancouver is reeling after a driver tore through a crowd of hundreds in what police are calling a senseless and heartbreaking act of violence. 11 people now confirmed dead, with police warning the death toll could still rise. Well, earlier Acting Police Chief Steve Rye says the attack is the darkest day in the city's history.
It is impossible to overstate how many lives have been impacted forever by this lone individual. There are many unanswered questions about why this horrific crime happened, the motive of the person who did it, and whether anything could have been done to prevent it.
Well, the black SUV struck just after a Filipino festival ended. A moment of celebration turned into horror in seconds. The 30-year-old suspect, now in custody, has a long history of mental health issues and previous run-ins with police. But officers say it was not a terrorist act. Over 100 officers are now working the case as questions grow over just how and why the tragedy happened. Meanwhile, at least 40 people are dead and more than 1,000 injured after a massive explosion ripped through Iran's largest commercial port. Fires are still blazing there, with black smoke choking the skies and toxic fumes forcing residents to stay indoors. The blast has sparked fury across the country, with critics blaming officials for storing volatile materials, and questions are swirling over whether missile fuel was behind the blast. The port handles 80% of Iran's imports, raising fears of food shortages, though officials insist only part of the site was affected. Here, meanwhile, 2 women are seriously injured after a shocking crossbow attack on a busy Leeds street, now being investigated by counter-terrorism police. The violence unfolded on Otley Road, a popular spot for pub crawls, where 3 people, including the suspected attacker, were taken to hospital. The 38-year-old man with self-inflicted injury was arrested at the scene, where officers recovered a crossbow and a firearm. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has called it a serious, violent incident and praised the swift response of emergency services. Cordons remain in place tonight as police continue to investigate what motivated the attack. And some lighter, brighter sporting news for you. Liverpool have stormed to Premier League glory with a thumping 5-1 win over Spurs at Anfield tonight, clinching the title in dazzling fashion. The celebration started hours before kick-off, and after that performance, well, it looks like they'll be going on long into the night. 3 first-half goals set the tone with Salah's 28th of the season and a late own goal adding sparkle to a night the fans called unforgettable. It's a record-equalling 20th league title and the first they've lifted in front of fans since 1990. Manager Arne Slot marked his debut season with silverware, becoming the first Dutchman to win the Premier League. That's the latest from the GB Newsroom for now. Plenty more still to come right here. Don't go anywhere.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics, and hopefully bring a bit of common sense to where things have become senseless. We have got a huge show for you tonight, including Father Ted creator Graham Linehan and adult human female Kelly J. Keane. Yeah. And we have wonderful comedians and a fantastic studio audience. How are you, audience? There you are. I sense there's a lot of women here. Adult human, yeah, we've got an I Love J.K. Rowling T-shirt here. This is one of our turfs. We've got a very confused young man in the second row. And I see, and you bought, look at this, thank you so much. And someone's bought me some flowers as well. You're right, thank you so much. So, we have got a packed show. It's going to be a great one, but we're going to get straight into it now. One of Britain's most prominent public debates of modern times is that freedom of speech and freedom of the press. A new report by the House of Lords Communications and Digital Committee, The Future of News, analyses Britain's contemporary media culture, addressing everything from so-called censorship to the shortcomings of fact-checkers. Free speech warrior Baroness Fox spoke in the House of Lords on this matter just yesterday to respond to the report.
The variety of new material and the wide array of witnesses and opinion shows a recognition that the evolving news media landscape requires a certain openness, even humility. None of us have ready-made solutions to present challenges. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complacent about allowing untruths to go unchallenged, but I'm not sure that fact-checkers or indeed media literacy is the answer.
I am joined now by the founder of Academy of Ideas, Baroness Fox. Welcome.
What a lineup of a show. I feel as though I'm definitely a bit of a weak support act.
No,
well, there we go.
Absolutely.
We'll get it going. We'll get it going.
So please tell us a little bit about this report.
Yeah. It's not often that you kind of come in and go, oh, you've got to read this House of Lords report. But actually, to be fair, the person who chaired the committee is Baroness Stowell, Tina Stowell, and I think she's done a very good job of bringing in a genuinely wide range of opinions of witnesses to this committee. And so when you read it, obviously there was lots of stuff I thought, what a load of nonsense. And then I think, oh, brilliant, that's a good witness. They've said an interesting thing. So it genuinely was a good read, and I'll put a link on my timeline. Why is it important? Because they were talking about how the mainstream media is in decline. Young people are not looking at it. There's a real problem. How can we restore trust in the media? And they talk about the need for diversity and plurality of the media. But the problem is that so many people cited in the report have a very distorted view of diversity. For a start off, they want diversity and pluralism, but they don't want new upstarts like GB News, right? They're all happy to go along with saying, oh, that's not news. We don't mean them. And one of the things the report's very good at is saying, actually, if the mainstream public service broadcasters don't understand why the likes of GB News are so popular, it's actually an indication of them being tone deaf and not picking up on why the public is so disillusioned. I think that's a good point.
Absolutely, because I guess it comes down to the audience at home not feeling listened to.
No, not at all. But also they've got this weird view of... So they say we want media diversity, but the problem then is, when they say we need a diverse media, they all think immediately of equity, diversity and inclusion, and the next minute, you know, they're going around ticking boxes. There's a great account on Twitter, which is, I've had to write it down, RipX for Nutmeg. And RipX for Nutmeg has been tracking how many stories the BBC has been doing about drag queens. About drag queens, and then there's mainstream news stories where they go to, we'll just go to so-and-so, so-and-so, and they're drag queens. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is, I'm a great fan of drag as it goes, is that you just know that somewhere in the BBC someone said, drag queens, let's have a diversity target of talking to and about drag queens. And lots of young people like drag queens and RuPaul's Drag Race, so we'll go to that. So that's the problem I've got.
Well, the connection is so tenuous so many of the times. I follow that account as well. I'm looking forward to VE Day to see how they're going to bring some sort of drag queen into it.
Exactly. And it's just a joke. I mean, as it happens, the account notes quite a lot of these the madnesses of mainstream media, and in relation to the way gender ideology in particular has also distorted so much of our public debate. But you mentioned fact-checkers as well. I mean, I think it's very important to note that we do not want to be in a free-for-all where people can just talk absolute nonsense and they aren't challenged. The problem is the official ways of challenging them are things like BBC Verify or the kind of fact-checkers which, to be fair, Mark Zuckerberg eventually admitted that his fact-checkers were politically biased, and they admitted that, actually, they had political pressure on them from American politicians and changed got rid of things which were inconvenient truths. But also, I think the thing that really annoys me is certain facts are allowed to go unchallenged. And when I say facts, I mean, there have been stories about women rapists covered by public service broadcasters and nobody bats an eyelid. That is, as we now know, although some of us always knew, misinformation. It's misinformation, but when they talk about attacking misinformation, they never mean that kind of misinformation.
Well, as you mentioned in the speech, you quoted Tom Slater from Spiked, we've had on the show, and he says that anti-misinformation is basically anti-dissent, or at least that's the fear.
Well, I think we all are fully aware of the fact that when they say we're going to launch a war on mis and disinformation, they often mean opinions. And in fact, there are not just Tom Slater, but there's lots of professors in here and all sorts of people who've said this has been weaponised. You know, there's a real danger that this can simply be used as a label to discredit opinions that you don't like. And I think that's very dangerous. It's also led, by the way, to some very anti-free speech trends. For example, campaigns of blacklisting, advertising blacklisting for certain media organisations that they don't like. GB News being one of them.
This was before the channel had launched 1 minute of television.
Exactly, where they say, oh, they will carry or disinformation. And you've got quite a lot of people who deployed the term as an accusation. And sadly, too many people who spoke in the debate, even though this is a good report, said, oh, what we've got to do is to have lots more media literacy in schools. And the government are committed now to media literacy. And the difficulty is that you just know it's going to be propagandised nonsense, very one-sided, and I can't have any faith in it, because let's be frank, we recently had a situation where the Prime Minister couldn't tell the difference between a documentary and a drama, right? So the idea that he is telling schools that they've got to lecture the nation's children on spotting the difference between fact and fiction, well, start with him. He needs to go to the odd lesson.
Or man and woman.
Man and woman, of course, of course. I think as well, though, really seriously, I mean, I mentioned this in this speech, I do think that it's up to us, though, to not give them any rope at all. And by that I mean, when people talk a load of rubbish on alternative, on online, in the online world, on podcasts and all the rest of it, and there's been this big, what's known as Podcastistan, would you believe, where we've had Douglas Murray go on Joe Rogan's show and basically say, look, why do you have all these guests on who literally are talking rubbish? It is misinformation, disinformation, and you can't just sort of say, we're not all relativists, you know, it's not like OK to go on and make up stories about Israel, to make up, fabricate and rewrite history around Churchill. If kind of right-wingers do it, it doesn't make it any better than if mad, lunatic, woke lefties do it. And by the way, I'm from the left, and I think what we've got to stop doing is being partisan. You know, if people on our side talk rubbish, we've got to tell them they're talking rubbish. My final thing, if I can just say, is one of the things about the bias of news coverage, and not even, but you can imagine the House of Lords is full of people like this, is Have I Got News for You is a news programme that deploys comedians to review the news.
It'll never catch on.
There's another programme that's a little bit like that called Headliners.
I've heard of it.
Obviously, Headliners is funnier. What I'm saying is when do you ever see mainstream media watching avidly to look at Have I Got News for You so that they can, I don't know, launch an online campaign saying, why don't you all complain about this programme? But you do, however, have almost an army of people on the lookout for GB News. Not just GB News, to be fair. You know, there's Talk TV, and there's a wide range of other channels, as it were, but they're out to attack media plurality. And that's the kind of smug, complacent, metropolitan attitude that I think has made so many people give up on mainstream media. And just to say, I'm like a Radio 4 type. I've been an addict listener to Radio 4 forever. Well, not forever, because I wasn't always old. But you know what I mean? Middle age and all that. But now I actually turn it off. And it's not that I listen to GB News, I actually listen to Times Radio a lot. I listen to GB News radio a lot. I listen to Talk Radio a lot. In other words, I've started to realise that I'm not going to just think that the BBC says it's reliable. And actually, you'll know more about this than me, but I have to say the final nail in the coffin has been the Israel-Gaza war and also the gender sex issue. Those two issues of huge importance to millions of people, we've been served very badly by, I'm afraid, the misinformation coming out of the BBC.
Yeah, and it should be said, by the way, Have I Got News for You last week didn't even mention one of the biggest news stories of the week.
They didn't mention it last week. This week they have mentioned it, and then it was like Joe Brand saying, I was a bit scared to talk about it, and they all kind of giggled nervously.
Well, I'm not scared. And neither...
Never have been, you're very brave.
And you were an excellent opening act, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Claire Fox. Comic legend and Father Ted creator ditched the UK for the USA after becoming sick of cancel culture, but he's back with us tonight to tell us all about it. And next on Free Speech Nation, our audience quiz me and our panel of the most weird and wonderful stories of the week. This is Free Speech Nation on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My comedian guests this evening are Cressida Wetton and Kerry Marks.
Hooray for us.
There we go. So we're going to get some questions from the audience. Our first question is from Loretto.
How do penguins feel about colonisation?
How do penguins feel about colonisation? Yes. So a Cambridge University museum has claimed Britain's exploration of the Antarctica was colonial despite only penguins living there. The museum informs visitors that the daring and often fatal expeditions to the South Pole were in the colonial mould despite the southernmost continent having no human population to conquer or exploit. Do you think that it's colonialism? Do you think the penguins are upset?
I just am against... I love penguins and I'm against colonialism. I'm Irish.
Okay, so you're Irish and so that means you love penguins?
Well, it means I'm against colonialism and I do love penguins.
And you do love penguins together, fine. So have you seen the story?
I have, yeah. I mean, I just feel terrible. When I was at university, one of our favourite cheap nights out was night in where we'd get drunk and watch episodes of Pingu. And I look back and we used to laugh at that. And now I feel deeply insensitive.
Yeah, and what about Happy Feet?
To hell with the penguins, Josh. No, look, colonialism, it's got a bad side and everything, but it's also got, you know, if it hadn't been for colonialism, there'd be like 8 billion people living in Africa fighting over a mango tree. We're lucky, and that would be whilst the rest of the world was empty. The reason we're going into space is because we are colonialising space, and we will look for everything useful we can find that can justify that kind of money it costs to do that. It's expensive, colonialism. Colonialism gave us better medicine, it gave us roads, it gave us everything that we have right now. It is not in itself evil, the way it's sometimes done, but we're talking about penguins. We're talking about penguins, what are they called? Kings and emperors. Yeah. What are their groups called? What's their identity? They're colonies. They have colonies, right? And they march them long distances and they throw up as foreplay. They deserve to be colonised.
Wow, this is...
You know there's penguins now in the Middle East? You go to the UAE and see penguins. Look at them colonising other countries.
You've changed, Kerry. Yeah. So GB News has contacted the Polar Museum in Cambridge.
I thought you said the penguins.
For comment, yes. But we've heard nothing back as of yet. Our next question's from Janice.
Is violence OK if you're left-wing?
Is violence OK if you're left-wing? So, yes, this is a left-wing protester who assaulted a man at an immigration demonstration, accusing him of being a racist and a fascist, and incited others to swarm around him in the wake of the Southport killings, has walked free from court amid accusations of two-tiered justice. Caroline Leno-Han, no relation, snatched an iPhone from Dylan Fontaine and smashed it on the ground during a confrontation at a rally in Bournemouth last summer. So, have you been to some events? I'm going to just make an assumption. Have you been to some Let Women Speak events?
Yes, I've been to some Let Women Speak events.
And there's been violence there in some of them?
Yeah.
And the police...
Stood there and watched.
Yes. So we have here a left-wing protester. It does seem that one rule applies for one group of protesters and one rule applies for another, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's there are other circumstances here, Cresta. She's pregnant, or 20 weeks pregnant. I mean, who knows if she got pregnant specially? I can't possibly comment on
None of
that.
our business.
No, but any accusations of two-tier policing is met with accusations of it somehow being a far-right theory. Yet when you're seeing I don't even like one side, the other side, but when you're seeing rules misapplied or to one group of people and not another, then that accusation's real, right?
Push back a little bit and say that I read the judge's comments and this woman very nearly went to prison and would have done had it not been for the fact that she was 20 weeks pregnant at the time. So I think that might be the other side to that. But it's still infuriating. I mean, there's no doubt that she did it. You know, we talk about whether or not something counts as incitement to violence all the time. She was there, and in the flesh, she was saying to people, "Get him, lads," or words to that effect.
Yeah.
So it's very infuriating.
I mean, Kerry, there's a government report recently said that there's no evidence of two-tier police, even though this person, they caused violence.
Yes.
I mean, they broke the phone. There's an irony here, of course, in that the person she was attacking, saying that was racist, was actually Muslim.
It was a
twist.
Someone on her side. It was a friendly fire incident, and you know, I do think it's with the caveat she's 20 weeks pregnant. I don't think she should be pregnant. I don't think she should be going to prison or anything. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, if hypocrisy was a crime in itself, I think there'd be a revolving door on the court cases right now, because there's been so much. And what it is, this is indicative of something that is going on an awful lot. I've heard that playing Mozart to a baby in the womb is supposed to be really helpful, but maybe going to an angry demonstration and being violent probably isn't the best thing, except, as you say, maybe it's something you should do if you're going to a demonstration, because you might get off a sentence.
Yeah, maybe maybe this is how she met the father.
Well, maybe she's going to call... She should call the baby impunity. Thank you.
Our next question is from Ian.
Hi. Is Hamas propaganda on the school curriculum?
Yeah, is Hamas propaganda on the school curriculum? A Mail investigation has discovered far-left teachers proudly claiming to be sharing pro-Palestine materials in their schools, as others have taken part in hardline campaigns and protests against Israel. And it comes after the National Education Union, Britain's largest teaching union, last week backed a motion accusing Israel of apartheid and vowed to produce school resources that raise awareness of the situation in Palestine. I don't know about you, but I would quite like our teachers just to teach stuff, like numbers and reading.
I would like to see all ideologies out of school and just teach the national curriculum, as they should be.
Well, this is it. I mean, the NEU seems to be trying to make the national curriculum include Hamas propaganda.
Well, I don't think they would push back on that and say that they weren't doing that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I thought you might, Josh. I mean...
What do you think, Josh?
Misinformation alert number one. No.
Yeah, I think more pro-Palestine stuff in schools. That's my opinion. No, I'm completely with you. Of course, ideology doesn't belong in schools, does it? Let's, you know, maybe once everyone in the UK has got churning out kids that are killing it in maths and English, maybe we can talk about ideology. But it's not like education hasn't got other things on its plate, and it doesn't belong in schools. Of course not.
I mean, some of the examples in this article, if you read it, were kind of shocking. That you think this is a primary school teacher and this is going to be teaching possibly even Jewish students or not.
Presumably not. It's ideology and it's indoctrination, and of course at the beginning of... I hesitate calling it the Israel-Gaza war, because actually it was a seven-front war, and you had Hezbollah was bombing Israel like the day after October the 7th, so it's a much bigger picture, and it's always narrowed into this simplistic perspective of what's happened, and that was going on straight away, and it gets... I was going to say, during that, you then had children coming out of schools, and even primary schools, shouting hatred stuff about Jews and so on, whilst Jewish children in this country were being told not to go to their Jewish schools wearing blazers that would show they were Jews. And I think that's an absolutely obnoxious situation to be happening. But it's also that there's a lot of real stuff that should be taught here, like the Nakba and so on, which everyone knows that word. And it's something that was tragic. But when you put it in its perspective of the 20th century, of all the horror that happened around the Middle East, of Jews being thrown out of countries all across the Middle East where they've been for thousands of years, long before Islam was even a thing. And of course, 2 world wars, falling empires, empires. You've got millions of people being shoved all over the world, and this one thing stands out. It's actually more like a paper cut in the middle of a genocide. It's tiny compared to everything that happened around it. So, yeah, I think we've completely lost perspective with this whole story.
Well, Kerry, I'm not sure if you're going to make it as a primary school teacher.
No, not in today's world at all, no.
And I have to say, for Ofcom purposes, that I agree with everything you said. So, plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including women's rights activist Kellie-Jane Keen, who will join us in the studio. But next, late last year, comic legend and Father Ted creator ditched the UK for the USA after becoming sick of cancel culture. But he's back with us tonight to tell us all about it. This is Free Speech Nation, only on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
High pressure is in charge mainly across Europe at the moment, but its positioning is leading to some slightly different conditions. Out across Iberia, there's plentiful amounts of sunshine and a really lovely day to come tomorrow in particular. There are some showers, though, lingering around Italy, parts of the Balkans, just to watch out for. And there's quite a keen breeze developing from the Black Sea down through into the Aegean, so it is going to be quite fresh along some of those Greek islands. But with high pressure sticking around, it is going to be remaining fairly settled into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything.
Oh.
Everybody ages at different rates. Both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late is 70, well, we might even say 80, it's too late to find love, the answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that you know, love is not going to come around knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70, over someone like me, could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Graham, I understand, is nearby. Because he's been in America, he desperately needed to reassociate himself with some of our UK culture, so he went and got a kebab. But he is here momentarily, so we're actually going to get on with some more questions from our audience. We're going to have one now from Chris.
Should your parents' job demanding if you go to a university?
Yes, so should your parents' job determine, whether you go to university? Because unis are set to slash the entry grades for disadvantaged students in a major shake-up to boost access for all, including those who grew up in care, come from low-income families or went to struggling schools. Under a new action plan by Universities UK, which represents campus bosses, more contextual offers will be handed out, making it easier for students to land places on top courses. So we've had this in America. I guess it's a version of affirmative action. It's not tied, though, to ethnicity. That's a positive, I would argue. And I would also say that the class system in this country seems to be the most prevalent determinant as to people's outcomes. So you're not. What do you think about this? You're not going with it?
What a great way to make the university places not seem as valuable as they were before. I'm not saying there aren't people with disadvantage, but I don't think this is a solution. It just means that all those people who are so proud to have their Oxbridge degrees will not be as proud as they were, which is sad.
Yeah, no, fair enough. What do you think about this, Kerry?
Well, you know, Josh.
Do I? Please don't say anything about penguins again.
I haven't had many thoughts on this yet. No, but I do think if people are disadvantaged, yes, there's ways we should be helping them and encouraging them into universities and so on. But I think lowering standards is an awful way to go. I think there's a point in the future where you're going to ask for a white doctor from a high-class background just because you're going to trust his qualification more than someone who got in because their standards were lowered. It's not a very good way to go at all.
No, but this affects everyone.
Yeah, but it's also, if diversity is our strength, then we shouldn't have to lower the standards. It should be the standard has been going up.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been happening, clearly. I don't want to ever be in an aeroplane that's crashing and then the pilot saying, yes, but I was from a difficult background, so I hope you understand, you know? I think it's a shameful direction we're going.
Well, I guess the other thing is that it's another way of getting more people to go into the education system and then come out with massive debts.
Yeah, well, great point.
It's not like they're giving scholarships to...
Trust me, I went. It's not all it's cracked up to be. And, you know, people always say now, don't they, have a few years out, maybe get a trade, look at something. There's lots of other things. I don't think it's what it was. Let's all blame Tony Blair for that. As soon as everybody starts going to anything, it's no longer special. So I don't think it's necessarily right for everyone to go.
And, of course, there are people who've come from disadvantaged backgrounds in the past who have come through the system. The system has worked for them.
Yes. I mean, well, clearly there has been. And as I say, help people out if they need help to get there and so on. But can you name any others, or have you just got one you're plucking from in desperation? That's the closest you can get, is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So, yes, well, I don't think anymore. I've got nothing else to say on the matter at all, actually.
Well, you know what? If only you'd been allowed into university, you could riff along for it. Professor Dame Sally Mapstone of St Andrews said higher education should be a realistic option for everyone with the potential to succeed, no matter their background. Our next question is from Marjan.
Should men comment on women's football?
Should men comment on women's football? Yes, this former Arsenal and England striker Ian Wright has rejected Eni Aluko's apology after she accused him of blocking opportunities in women in football and dominating punditry. While Ian Wright expressed disappointment, he emphasised his long-standing support for the women's game and stated he wants to move on from the issue. Are you a fan of women's football?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, you sound massive.
I'm not a fan of football in general, but yeah, I do like to watch women football, and obviously, you know, women power and all.
No, absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, Cresta, you're always... I mean, this is not normally what she wears. She's normally got a football gear on.
You know, my real issue with this is I don't want to be forced to comment on any football. But Ian Wright, has he commented on too much? I mean, he's Ian Wright. He's really good at what he does. He's also been incredibly generous in terms of helping other people in football. He may have helped men as well. I suspect he probably has. But he's sort of... What I've read this week is that he's helped... He's contributed...
Women coaching or something?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a woman who owes her career to him because he's helped her out with her therapy, her physiotherapy when she'd had an accident and so on and so on. And I think these... I wonder if this story's blown out of proportion because it was on Radio 4 and they do tend to be a bit feminist. And I wonder whether what she was really saying was she's kind of raising this... Right. Fair point. More on that later. I think she was sort of saying something like... there are still more male football commentators. And it's like, well, yeah, of course there are, you know.
But the big hypocrisy here is that she comments on the male game, and she's saying that no men should be commenting on the female game.
Well, she didn't phrase it like that. She said he should be aware, you know, we've all got to have a serious conversation. And I wonder whether she has backtracked on these comments a bit. She's apologised. I think Ian Wright is correct to say, let's just move on from this.
Yeah, well, moving on, but at the same time, he's quite clear. He says, I'm not going to accept her apology. There's someone, he feels, I think he's helped her out considerably with her career in the past, and probably takes it to be a bit of a backstab.
I mean, I also, I don't watch football at all, no interest whatsoever, but at the same time, I mean, I think it was a small point that she made, and she has apologised for it, to be fair, but at the same time, first of all, I'd say that maybe you do need the occasional male commentator with women's football. There's got to be someone who knows how to play the game. I'm just playing with you. Typical female reaction. Can't handle a joke, huh?
Well, this is actually the best way to determine what a woman is. Say a disparaging comment about women's football.
He's a guy who's done a lot for women's football, as far as I understand. We were talking about it before, and it's a bit like he comes home after a hard day of doing everything he can for women's football, and there's women's football on the couch going, no, there's still something you did wrong. Just being there. And so I don't see how he can really win, other than say, all right, then men can't have anything to do with it, which...
yeah, I wonder if this might be how toilets are now determined, like which toilet you go into. And I'm just wondering if, like, you would ask a question about women's football before.
Yes, no, I think you're right. I think football is just like a toilet. It's a good point.
OK, well, Eni Aluko said in her apology that she was trying to make a broader point about the limited opportunity for women in football and the importance of creating more space for women to thrive on and off the pitch. But she said it was wrong for Ian's name to be raised in that conversation, and for that, she apologises. Our next question's from Anton. There he is.
Is the BBC licence fee over?
Is the BBC licence fee over? Yeah, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy criticised the BBC licence fee, calling it unenforceable and unfairly targeting women, particularly vulnerable individuals who've been prosecuted for non-payment. Lisa Nandy announced a review of the BBC's Royal Charter, seeking a fairer funding model and inviting public input on alternatives, including a potential subscription-based system. I can't believe that I have gone so far on this particular topic, because I've always been sort of BBC as sacrosanct and represents ideally the best of culture, and it's just not. It's been a big letdown the last couple of years.
You've definitely moved away from that, haven't you? You dislike the licence fee almost as much as our Culture Secretary, apparently. What's Lisa Nandy doing? Saying, oh, you don't need to pay it, we can't enforce it anyway. I think that's mad that she's come out with these comments. Of course, she's right. And of course, the other thing is that it's sexist, isn't it? Because we know that most of the convictions are women because they sit around at home all day moaning. No, I think because women are at home, no, there's more women prosecuted.
I think they answer the door, and I think when someone says, "Can I come in?" and they go, "Yes," and then they see they've got a telly. That might be part of it. That might be part of it.
I don't know. But yes, subscription service, interesting.
Subscription. Do you have any idea?
Or maybe women are leading the movement against the fee. Yeah,
right.
Sisters?
Trying to win them back from that football stuff, eh? Do you have any idea about how the BBC should be paid for, if it should be paid for?
I think they've got to make their service better and get back to being they've become so ideologically captured right now. It's frustrating to watch. It's in almost every single programme you watch. And I think a lot of people don't want to be paying for something that they totally don't agree with and feels like it's being shoved down your throat. So I think that's a part of it. But actually, I've always thought the licence fee has always been so heavy-handed. You remember the vans that used to go around that can apparently they can see through walls of a building, of a block of flats, but they weren't at the same time capable of working out whether Jimmy Savile was getting up to anything. So you know, I do think the licence fee needs to be a choice now, and I think it's I don't agree with a lot. Watch GB News.
There we go. Yeah. Which you don't have to pay for. That's the point, right? A BBC spokesman said, "The public cares about the BBC, and we've launched our biggest ever public engagement exercise so audiences can help drive and shape what they want from a universal and independent BBC in the future. We want to continue to reform and evolve and look forward to engaging with the government on the next charter and securing the long long-term future of the BBC. So, plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including women's rights activist Kelly J. Keane and Graham Linnern, who's going to join us in the studio. But next on Free Speech Nation, journalist Jonathan Sacherdoti gave evidence to the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee on the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it got heated. He'll join us to tell us all about that in a second.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Don't worry if you missed out on the sunshine this weekend. As we head into next week, even more of us will be seeing some blue skies. It will take its while, though, for northern areas of the UK. We do still have this rain band in play for this evening and overnight. It's quite a damp and breezy period to come for, particularly northwestern Scotland. Dry nights elsewhere, underneath the clearest skies of England and Wales, there will be some patchy mist and fog developing, and we could see a very patchy grass frost as we kick off Monday morning. There will be some low cloud and fog just lingering around the channel as we head throughout Monday, so some of that may just drift its way towards southern coasts of England at times, but inland, once any of that early mist and fog has cleared, there'll be plentiful amounts of sunshine to be greeted with. Still a touch of cloud for Northern Ireland, Northern England first thing, but all eyes are on this area of rain that will continue its journey ever so slightly northwards as we do head throughout Monday. So Caithness, Sutherland, parts of the Outer Hebrides and over towards Orkney will still have some rain at times during the day, but we will start to see the skies brightening for Northern Ireland, particularly County Down, parts of Northern England and southern and central Scotland as well. And then for the bulk of England and Wales, plentiful amounts of sunshine throughout the day, and it will be feeling rather warm out there. Highs between 20-24 degrees Celsius, well above our late April average. High pressure will be building in more widely as we head into the rest of next week, helping to push that weather front even further out of the way. So still the chance of a little bit of cloud and patchy rain for the likes of the Northern Isles during Tuesday, but really the vast majority of us are going to have a wonderful day out there. Plentiful amounts of sunshine, just a bit of a breeze around the far south coast here, but otherwise it certainly will be feeling again very warm, and temperatures will continue to climb in the sunshine that we do have. Mid to high 20s are very likely for many of us as we head towards the end of the week.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Earlier this week, journalist Jonathan Sacherdoti gave evidence to the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee on the Israel-Hamas conflict. During the meeting, Labour MP Abtesam Mohammed had a back and forth with Jonathan. Let's take a look how it went.
I think that right now, after the atrocities of October the 7th, much of the, let's say, traditionally left peace camp in Israel has really been massively disillusioned by what happened from its Palestinian neighbours.
Does that justify violent settlers?
I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm not here to defend or anything. I'm just giving you my analysis.
In terms of settlement expansions, then, do you think that they should come to an end, or do you think that they should carry on as they are?
Well, I think the issues of the disputed territories in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, it's a live issue that has always been part of the negotiations when they've been able to take place between the two sides.
Jonathan joins me right here in the studio. Welcome, Jonathan. So, I watched the full 33 minutes, quite heated, back and forth, somewhat seemingly antagonistic towards you. What I don't really understand, though, is what the purpose of this committee was. Now, I know that they said that it was because it was finding the UK government's role in finding peace. I guess my question is, what role does it think that it should have on peace in the Middle East? The Foreign Affairs Committee is meant to help the government by making investigations and analysing possible foreign policy positions that the UK can take on various issues. So I suppose their idea is that they should be looking at the conflict that Israel has with the Palestinians and has had for decades, in order to see if Britain can play a part in helping to create peace in the region. But I think that's a pretty long shot, especially with the government we have at the moment, which seems to tie itself in knots, going backwards and forwards one day and the next over exactly what it thinks of Israel. But this committee, to me, was quite extraordinary because it's, as you saw, Abdeslam Mohammed there, who was one of the MPs on the committee trying to grill me, is one of the MPs that was actually turned away from Israel in the airport when she flew over there and told them she was on a parliamentary mission. The Israelis said they had no knowledge of such a thing, no preparation had been made on their side, and indeed, because they said she broke their rules on campaigning for boycotts of Israel, and they don't allow people who campaign for boycotts of Israel into the state of Israel, they turned her around and sent her back. Now, Emily Thornberry, who is the chair of the committee, was a big flag waver for her. She said when that happened that Israel would rue the day that it had done that. And indeed, within a few days, Emily Thornberry herself was calling for a unilateral declaration of British recognition of a Palestinian state. That, yes, 18 months after the Palestinians burst over the border, raped, stole, kidnapped, etc., in southern Israel. So I think I knew going into that committee what kind of opinions and what kind of people I was dealing with, but I really wasn't prepared for the aggressive behaviour, the amount of really quite obnoxious behaviour that I experienced and also the other witnesses who were not anti-Israel. I think it was quite extraordinary, bearing in mind the committee invites experts and people whose opinion it wants to hear to come and give what they call evidence to the committee, and yet once you get in there they treat you like you're on trial, and not only are you on trial but you're on trial for the actions of a state far away. I think it's quite absurd. I think they really did themselves a massive disservice, and as you said, I think everyone watching it, I've had letters from around the world asked the same question, saying what on earth are they doing debating this? Imagine if an Israeli committee, a Knesset committee, decided to have a hearing of evidence on what Britain should do about rape gangs, Muslim rape gangs, or on two-tier policing, or on any other number of British issues which Britain doesn't seem to be handling very well. British Parliament, the British government would be absolutely incensed, and quite rightly so, especially if they just called a bunch of people who weren't even Israeli and tried to get them to defend that position, as they did. So I think it was a really absurd show from the Foreign Affairs Committee under Emily Thornberry's chairmanship. Well, also what it revealed, I think, is just the kind of misinformation even within the questions. Now, it's not a bad thing to ask questions, and that's how facts can be obtained. That's the idea behind it. But when the starting point is misinformation, that's a problem.
Well, the thing that I realised when those people, and let's remember, this is the Foreign Affairs Committee, so I did go there expecting them to have perhaps some appreciation of the history and the issues that are at play in the Middle East. If they didn't have before, maybe they would after a year and a half of the war that's been going on and that's been making headlines ever since. But really what I witnessed was an enormous amount of ignorance. I mean, the first guy who grilled me, a Liberal Democrat, asked me about the Israeli prisoners in Gaza. I corrected him. They're not prisoners. They haven't been taken to court for crimes and found guilty and put in prison with minimum prison conditions. They're hostages who've been brutally abducted by a jihadist group of Palestinians, dragged into Gaza, kept there, starved, tortured, raped. We've seen the results from the ones that have been released, not least the dead ones who have been released in exchange for prisoners, Palestinian prisoners who have carried out brutal acts of violence and terrorism and been tried and put in Israeli prisons. So I think at the very opening, even his assertion that the Israelis in Gaza are prisoners was outrageous. And that level of ignorance seemed to be reflected through the whole committee. There was one MP there, Afra Brandreth, who seemed to have less of an aggressive approach and seemed more open to hearing the evidence of the people like me who'd gone in to speak. But other than that, I was utterly shocked. And Emily Thornberry really was the worst because she was so aggressive, so needlessly puerile. At one point, she actually decided just to go silent and stare me in the eye as if she had some kind of laser beam that would, you know, cut down my common sense and cogent arguments. But in fact, what it was that I had asked her if she agreed agreed with me that de-radicalising Gaza and Palestinian society from the extremism that caused October the 7th was a good aim. She was so staggered that I dared to ask her that question in her committee that she just went silent and gave me a death stare like Paddington Bear.
Well, she's not here to defend herself.
Thank goodness.
But the other news story just happened this week, yesterday, was the Telegraph revealed that the BBC, again, is featuring Jew haters on their screen. And this isn't ambivalent stuff. This is on BBC Arabic and people calling for the murder of Jews. It's crazy. And this one individual's been on, I believe, 12 times featured from Gaza.
It's worth saying as well that BBC Arabic isn't just paid for with the licence fee. BBC Arabic is paid for with our tax money as well. So that makes it doubly bad, in my opinion, that we're paying for this tosh, not just through a licence fee, but also through taxes and through the Foreign Office. And this guy said that Jews should burn like they did with Hitler, and that this time they would make sure there were none left. The BBC, of course, did their usual. They played dumb and said they didn't know. But if Camera Arabic, the organisation that researched his public tweets and Facebook posts, were able to find it, you would have thought that maybe the BBC could. But then again, let's remember that they put out that documentary with the son of a Hamas politician and pretended they didn't know that. So perhaps
Gary Lineker's favourite documentary.
I just think maybe Google doesn't work in Broadcasting House.
Obviously not. Yeah, and they always come out with the same thing, that they weren't staff, and that's OK. Somehow.
Yeah,
if you've got staff.
Nazi sympathisers just as freelancers, that's all right, of course.
OK, well, look, let's have a right of reply from the BBC. And also, I just want to say we reached out to Labour MP Absa Mohammed for comment. We're still waiting for a response from her. But the BBC spokesman said international journalists, including the BBC, are not allowed access into Gaza, so we hear from a range of eyewitness accounts from the Strip. These are not BBC members of staff or part of the BBC's reporting team. We are not aware of the individual's social media activity prior to the hearing from them on air. We are absolutely clear that there is no place for anti-Semitism on our surfaces. Well, there we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, yes, from Jonathan. That's the end of the first hour of Free Speech Nation. Don't go away. Kelly J. Keane, Graham Minute, and it's going to be fantastic. See you in a sec.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Don't worry if you missed out on the sunshine this weekend. As we head into next week, even more of us will be seeing some blue skies. It will take its while, though, for northern areas of the UK. We do still have this rain band in play for this evening and overnight. It's quite a damp and breezy period to come for, particularly northwestern Scotland. Dry nights elsewhere. Underneath the clearest skies of England and Wales, there will be some patchy mist and fog developing, and we could see a very patchy grass frost as we kick off Monday morning. There will be some low cloud and fog just lingering around the channel as we head throughout Monday, so some of that may just drift its way towards southern coasts of England at times. But inland, once any of that early mist and fog has cleared, there'll be plentiful amounts of sunshine to be greeted with. Still a touch of cloud for Northern Ireland, Northern England first thing, but all eyes are on this area of rain that will continue its journey ever so slightly northwards as we do head throughout Monday. So Caithness, Sutherland, parts of the Outer Hebrides and over towards Orkney will still have some rain at times during the day. But we will start to see the skies brightening for Northern Ireland, particularly County Down, parts of Northern England and southern and central Scotland as well. And then for the bulk of England and Wales, plentiful amounts of sunshine throughout the day, and it will be feeling rather warm out there. Highs between 20-24 degrees Celsius, well above our late April average. High pressure will be building in more widely as we head into the rest of next week, helping to push that weather front even further out of the way. So still a chance of a little bit of cloud and patchy rain for the likes of the Northern Isles during Tuesday, but really the vast majority of us are going to have a wonderful day out there. Plentiful amounts of sunshine, just a bit of a breeze around the far south coast here, but otherwise it certainly will be feeling again very warm, and temperatures will continue to climb in the sunshine that we do have. Mid to high 20s are very likely for many of us as we head towards the end of the week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Thursday, the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. Still to come, last week's Supreme Court ruling marked a big moment for women's rights. Comedy writer Graham Linehan spoke up early, but learned that telling the truth can come at a cost. He'll join us shortly, and we'll be showing you this week's social sensations at the end of the show. You do not want to miss that either. But earlier today, women's rights activist Kellie-Jay Keen held one of her Let Women Speak events at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. Women and men attended the event following the landmark Supreme Court judgment. I'm very, very happy to say joining me now in the studio is Kellie-Jay Keen. Welcome to Free Speech Nation. This might be a less combative interview than you might be used to historically. Would you mind actually just... We've reached a bit of a crossroads here, I think, in this argument and for fight for women's rights, but I just want to go back a little bit to how you first got involved, like what your first memories are. I saw a clip of you and a bunch of other women, it might even be like 10 years old or something, at an event, and it felt like you were being like chased upstairs and through alleys or something.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Is that how you got involved, or were you involved before that?
No, I got involved before that. So 2015, the Conservatives were voted in. I didn't know that was going to actually happen. I was very comfortable on the left. Joined an online group of women objecting to it, and then it was populated by men. I mean, I say men, I mean truckers. I mean men with wigs who called themselves women. And And then I realised you couldn't talk about it. And the women were very cross if you talked about it. So then that's all I wanted to talk about.
So it was women who were very cross initially?
I mean, he was also cross when I said, are you sure? He was like a Bernard Manning. That was his voice. That was what I could hear, is a Bernard Manning sort of sexist. And I just said one day, you sure you identify as a woman? And I may as well have said, shall we just kill your family?
Really?
Yeah, it was a huge response.
So it's the silencing or the response to you speaking what you considered to be true and actually turned out to be true legally.
Yes.
That meant that you were like, if I'm going to get pushed back, then I'm going to push back from that point.
Yeah.
So you weren't any kind of activist before this, right?
No, I was a very happy stay-at-home mother. That's my day job. That was what I was doing. And then I just got repeatedly cancelled, often by women. I was asking a question, does my 11-year-old daughter have the right to use a female-only space and not see an adult penis? And you'd think the answer to that was yes, of course. But no, it wasn't. It was that she was a bigot. Why was I raising such a pervert? Transphobic, yada, yada. It was all pretty shocking stuff. And then I just had to find ways of speaking about it. I ended up in a little secret group where actually most of the women that you will have heard of in this fight were in that secret group, and then we all, well, probably fell out, I don't know, I can't remember. But we all ended up doing slightly different things to bring us to this point.
Well, I would say that for me, I mean, you know, you're certainly one of the most pivotal people in terms of seeing some of your videos, seeing your talks, to clarify the issues at stake, I guess. Also, you've been on various podcasts. What is the response that you've had from people in the street? Or do you think that has changed? Do you think initially no one was really aware of any of this stuff and you've kind of seen this exponential growth?
Well, I think my place in this whole thing was to tell people that it was happening. I sort of felt like I'm the person who raises the alarm. So initially, I think people thought it was a bit of a radical feminist versus poor men in dresses. I think it was sort of seeing two little fringe elements of society. And I don't think people understood that what it meant is just anybody calling themselves a woman could end up in a woman-only space. And I don't think I thought that in the beginning. I had no idea. So 2016 was really sort of my rapid journey into super peaking, where you realise that they're doing it to children, that actually these men... I mean, back in 2016, these men would call themselves trans women, and the idea of them calling themselves female or just women was preposterous. I mean, it is. It is preposterous. The whole thing is nuts. And the fact that anybody takes it seriously it really says something quite terrible about our society.
Well, this is it. It's not that anybody took it seriously, it's that everybody took it seriously in our institutions, politicians, the media. And last week, Supreme Court ruling, of course, do you think that's brought an end to that? Because I naively, I guess, thought, OK, well, that's settled now. But it seems to have created an even larger reaction.
Well, I think the danger when you have a near win, which I think this is like people might feel like it's finished, but it's not. But I think there's a danger now that there will be compromises. That's what really concerns me, because when you know that there's a big fight, then you can fight. But if it's a bit of we sort of won, it becomes more difficult, I think, to get people to fight it. Keir Starmer, I think he'll just put it to the side. There's been clarity. Did you know there's been clarity?
Always been.
So he'll be talking about that. They'll push it over to the EHRC. I think the EHRC has been dreadful. I think it's been dreadful since the Equality Act, since 2010. We shouldn't have needed a clarification. It shouldn't have taken 3 brave women from Scotland to actually get it to the Supreme Court. So there'll be a lot of people who now are like, oh, my goodness, thank goodness, there is clarity. We can just pretend these were our policies all along and we couldn't really help it. So there will be those. But then there'll be activists, there'll be people that are unionised, so anybody remotely connected to any of the unions, teachers. There will be... I've had I've had communication from women in hospitals where they've already had internal communication that their hospital is going to try and find a way not to adhere to these this ruling at the Supreme Court. But we have to remember this was a ruling on clarification. Nothing has changed. There is no reason that anybody who suddenly realises that men aren't welcome in women-only spaces, there's no reason that they should have thought that an hour before the ruling.
Yeah. And do you think that the fight continues? Do you think there is a fight there? Is it that every institution needs to be uprooted? Because we are seeing a lot of denialism, a lot of... You know, I've seen various things put out from theatres and different groups and organisations. We support trans people. We're not going to go along with this ruling. I saw something interesting was that everybody will come into line because they have to obtain public insurance. And they're not going to be able to obtain it if they don't meet the requirements of the... So that, I thought, was quite an interesting element that maybe isn't being focused on yet.
I mean, money, right? At the end of it, is it going to cost the money? And if it is, then that's a great thing. I'd like to see us criminalise men and services that allow men in women-only spaces. I would like to see some sort of really clear action from the government on this.
You have support here, but we had a government minister on telly today talking about the opposite of that there isn't going to be anybody who criminalises it, there isn't going to be this kind of policed.
Yeah.
The analogy that would be that I've sort of seen online this week that seems to work is the difference is what we know now is that men don't have the right to be in women's toilets. So it's not about having someone out in front of the door questioning. The point is it's not just this entitled given right. Just like, and the people have pointed out, we don't have someone checking your licence every time you get into a car.
Yeah.
The point is it's the law. Then you follow the law or there are possible consequences afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat self-policing. All it takes is a few people or one or two people to be arrested for invading different space. And that
absolutely. And also, I think if councils are liable for their own property, so they're then liable if they don't effectively keep men out, or restaurants or bars or any of these places where they're not adhering to the law, I'd like to see some penalties. If I go into a restaurant and they've got mouldy food in there and the health and safety executive come in, something happens to that restaurant. So I don't know why it would be any different if we subject women to an unsafe environment by inserting a man in there.
But in that case, it seems that every restaurant, every theatre, every public space needs to be called to account in that way, which is obviously a huge amount of work, as opposed to them doing the policing themselves.
Yeah, well, I think you need a little bit of both, don't you? There needs to be carrot and stick. And I'm a real big fan of sticks.
Yes. Well, look, speaking of...
So sorry.
Enough about your private life. I was wondering whether for you, if I know this isn't the end, but if it is at least a resting point, to look backwards over the last decade, are you not happy with it, but are you... what are your emotional feelings about the way it's happened? Is there anger there? I mean, anger with our society that it went that far, the cost that has been paid by women like yourselves?
Yeah. Look, I think there are significant costs of individual women that will never know who they are or what's really happened to them, but we know that there's plenty of them. So that's something to be quite angry about. Also that... at any moment, our government... I mean, I talked about this afternoon. Our government shut down a whole country, like, for no reason, really, but they shut down a whole country. And to say that they can't do something really significant about this is nonsense. But I think what we have to acknowledge is underpinning this, the reason this particular ideology could take hold is because we live in a society that doesn't really like or respect women very much. And so there's going to be other battles in different shapes that are fundamentally at the foundation of which will be misogyny.
Well, this is a really interesting point because it was predominantly led by women. And do you think that was important or the most important element of this?
Yeah, yes and no. I think women had to be the main voices in this because
I've been to your events. I mean, I've hung out in the background. It's only women who speak. I found it very difficult.
Clues in the name. Clues in the name.
Yeah.
Let women speak.
Let women speak.
Yeah.
But I really want... No, OK, fine. But yes, having women arguing for women's rights is obviously going to be much more impactful.
Yeah.
So how it's going to directly impact you.
Yes, I mean, occasionally it is like herding cats, but other than that, I think the main voices have to be... When it comes to women's rights...
Just try being a Jewish advocate.
But, I mean, it has to be women's voices because we're the only ones that genuinely know what it feels like when there is a male voice in a female-only space. It just totally changes it. And I'm sure that men feel the same when there's a woman in their space. I'm not saying it changes it in the same way, but it certainly will change a conversation. So it has to be our voices. And I'm happy for men to stand beside women on this issue, but I really, really don't want any men standing in front of us. I don't think that's their place at all. That really undermines everything that we want to do in this movement. And I hope this continues. I hope women have learned that actually when it comes to what's happening to us, that we are the best people to talk about it. And we see it even in this movement that women often defer to men and start celebrating a man for doing something like relatively basic. So, you know, but these are women.
Guys, it's very difficult to present a TV show.
But this, I mean, look, we're women, so we're also socialised as women. So there's often it's a different set of rules, and maybe one of the reasons that some of the women are prominent, probably myself included, is because we buck some of the trends. Like I'm annoyingly confident, and that really doesn't sit well with some women, and I just hope what this thing has done is it's galvanised some women. I think maybe it gave us a fight that we A, didn't want, but B, the benefit is that we look to other women from all different walks of life. You know, I've had a Russian Orthodox, very devout woman standing next to a radical feminist lesbian, and they have just been there as women, and probably their paths would not necessarily have crossed had this thing not come along. So there have been some upsides, for sure.
Because there's this idea that gender ideology broke the brain of the world, or the Western world. But do you think that the lessons that have been learnt through this fight might actually help to fix it? And I'm not just talking about escaping gender ideology. There are other issues that you also publicly speak about. Some I agree with, some I don't. But the point is that by being this kind of accidental activist, the inspiration of other people to speak up and not to just automatically trust our media sources, any media source.
Yeah. Well, I think what we've all learned is how slippery people who have public platforms are and how much they're willing to lie just to get on. So that's quite a good thing. Just being able to speak about... It doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong or whether you agree with everybody else speaking on an issue. I think just being able to speak and just thinking, right, I'm just going to say it because I mean it and I think it, and I'd like to share this idea with someone, and I'm happy to disagree with people. So maybe it will give people a little bit of confidence when it comes to just speaking about things that they feel strongly about, or even not strongly about, just speaking. Because we've lost it. We've lost the art of conversation.
Do you think part of that might be because of sort of purity politics? I know that coming from the left, and it was realising that the left is fallible that then led me down the road going, oh, well, if Corbynism... And wait a minute, maybe we're not all wonderfully anti-racist as I thought that we were. And, oh, look, there's a lesbian over here being beaten up by a biological male and being seemingly... and the male is being said what a great anti-bigot they are.
Yes.
I wonder how many people sort of will move on from speaking up on this issue to speak out about other issues that concern us.
Well, I damn well hope so, because otherwise what a waste of an opportunity. But people are afraid. I tell you what I don't get. I don't get someone seeing this issue for what it is, a big fat lie, and seeing that all the mainstream, people in power, everybody just went along with this stuff, and they're not understanding that is happening in loads of issues all over the country. And I also think our government seems to try to want to make us feel really, really angry with all this gaslighting and dishonesty. And so I just think we all have to step back and think, what is being asked of us? Is it that we suddenly start rioting in the streets and get really angry? And how can we stop that? How can we not give them what they want? And the only answer to that is to speak and to kind of thrash it out verbally before it gets to violence.
Well, that's it, I guess, to be engaged would be the first step. And I wonder how much... It feels like a big crossover moment in the argument was when Isla Price of you have a male rapist going to a female jail. Friends of mine in my liberal little enclave would sort of be like, oh, it's a non-issue, this whole, why are you interested in this, why are you talking about this all the time? Because it felt to me so pivotal. But when that happened and when people could see very clearly where this ideology lent, the silent majority, it feels like that's when they spoke up or made themselves aware, and that's when Labour and all the different political parties really had to start grappling with it, because they were like, most people go, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I think to be British, there's that focus on fairness, and I don't think anyone sane anyway would look at that situation of a male rapist in a female jail and go, yeah, that's right, that's fair.
I mean, for those of us that have been sort of involved in this for a long time, I think we thought sterilising children might be the thing that people thought, that's pretty bad. Or certainly rapists in women's prisons. But there's been so many things. Women being convicted of crimes of, like, having stickers or calling some repulsive man online, I think he was called a pig. I mean, I had someone send me a £10,000 money claim on the basis that I called him a misogynist. When I say someone, I mean a misogynist sent me a £10,000 money claim.
It's £20,000 now.
But I've been interviewed, 3 times by the police? I mean, all these things, you'd think that it would make normal people wake up. But I guess whatever it is that wakes them up, but they just can't go back to sleep again, because that would be unforgivable.
Well, I would argue that you've woken many, many people, and you've done a fantastic job. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a massive round of applause. Next on Free Speech Nation, we are going to be chatting to comedy writer, legend Graham Linehan. He spoke up early as well. He's here to talk about his experiences. You don't want to miss it. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
From a PETA point of view, see, you guys are in the newspapers today, PETA, and it's about the definition of a rat. Have you seen this story?
Yeah, I have indeed. And, rats are individuals. And, of course, we want everyone to respect all animals. But one point I would like to raise is that, we mention animals who are going extinct. There are over 2,000 species right now that are on the endangered list.
Well, rats
and there are
won't be one
thousands
of them.
more. Well, rats are important as well, but we're here to talk about, the dire wolves. And it's important to point out that we need to think about what's going to happen to these animals once they're released back into the wild, because this is really complicated.
Yes,
and we need to remember that humans don't have a good track record of our treatment of wolves. Thousands are being culled as we speak due to perceived overpopulation problems. So why are scientists trying to bring back more of these animals when their cousins are being blasted out of their homes? It doesn't make sense, and we need to focus our efforts on protecting animals that are already here.
I get that. Just to say, a rat, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is a small rodent. The noun can mean also an unpleasant person who deceives others or is not loyal. And and you guys think that's unfair to rats, and you want it redesignated and redescribed. And I don't know if James Cagney would appreciate with you, you know, because I think when he was going, "You dirty rat, you dirty rat," I don't think that he was really wanting anybody kind or nice coming to him or whatever, but that's historic film.
Well, look, this is a completely friendly request, and we want to encourage everyone to respect all animals. Rats are lovely creatures, they're intelligent, and they're actually very clean. So, you know, this was a friendly request to the Oxford Dictionary, just to right a simple wrong.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Last week's Supreme Court ruling was a defining moment in the fight for women's rights, but it's been a long time coming and a difficult journey for many people. One of the first to pop their heads above the parapet was universally loved comedy writer Graham Linehan, but he found out that telling the truth, unfortunately, comes with a price. Well, I am honoured to be joined now by comedian and writer, creator of Father Ted and Black Books, and also my board game buddy, Graham Linehan. Thank you. Here he is. Is it over?
You wouldn't think so from all the commentators who seem to think that saying that a woman has a foo-foo and a man has a willy is the most confusing judgment, and it's kind of knocked them all for six. You know, what does this mean?
Yeah, what is biology?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it just means that you go back to what we've had for 100 years until the Tumblr people came along and persuaded everybody that some lesbians have a penis, you know? And it's that simple. And unfortunately, you got people like Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell who've been... Yeah.
Our next guest is Rory Stewart.
You get who I think are emblematic of a lot of people in this fight, in that they basically been hoodwinked by their idiotic kids, you know, and their very comfortable wives. Who, I mean, I met one person. Actually, it was Jimmy Mulville of Hat Trick Productions who was responsible for banning the Father Ted musical.
There was a Father Ted musical?
Yeah, there was.
That was a joke. I follow Graham on Twitter, so...
yeah, I sometimes mention it. But like, I remember he said to me, my wife says it's not a problem, you know? And these are the very privileged wives of very privileged people. All of them are Cambridge, Oxford types, you know? And I realised, you know, sometime into this fight that I was being kind of spat out by the elite middle class, you know, to whom I thought I belonged when I was in the media. But I realised that came with certain conditions. Yeah.
Don't speak up, don't rock the boat.
Don't tell the truth, don't defend women, don't complain about children being mutilated, you know. And I still feel that, you know, it's been a great week, and I'm very, very happy we got the result we did. The Supreme Court said something that got me banned from Twitter for 2 years, which is that men are men and women are women. But I still think there's a lot to be done. I still think children are being told that they're the opposite sex. They're having operations. There's a group of hospitals in the US that have just been found out to have been doing these operations on kids. And I think that we need jail terms for all the doctors who took part in this, you know? So...
Well, that's it. In America, it's a slightly different situation because of their healthcare system and the incentives to medicalise this condition, and arguably it came over here.
Yes, it's an American movement. You know, I mean, you had the extraordinary sight of left-wingers taking part in the civil rights movement that enriched plastic surgeons and big pharma. You know, and they managed to convince useful idiots over here. You know, I could name a bunch of Billy Bragg.
Just follow him on X.
Billy Bragg, Laurie Penny, Owen Jones, Neil Gaiman, exactly, who turned out to be a sadistic sex criminal, allegedly.
Allegedly!
And these are all people who, as Kemi Badenoch said about Keir Starmer, bent the knee to an American fad. I mean, it's very interesting. We noticed with Laurie Penny, she keeps talking about the bathroom bill. What English person calls the toilet a bathroom? And it's because they're all completely swayed by Americans, you know? So it's true that, you know, when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. And in this case, America sneezed and lots of kids cut their breasts off, you know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're seeing the support of that in the streets. We saw it last week. We saw these protests. We saw the violence
that was
towards
great,
women, the placards and the...
I couldn't have been happier. It was like a 1-2 punch. First of all, the Supreme Court came along and said men are men and women are women. And then trans activists showed what they've been doing to many of the women who are here today. I saw women kettled. You know, in Australia, there was psychotic violence against the police and women, and signs that say the only good turf is a dead turf, and so on and so forth. This is stuff that we've been putting up for years. No one else has seen it, and now what's great about these protests is that they're coming out, and they've been kind of steeped in a kind of sea of thinking this is normal. But as soon as ordinary people see what's actually happening, see what these people actually believe, they reject it, you know, because it's mad.
Well, I would argue with this talk of toilets, what's happened this week is that the general public are seeing for the first time what is meant by trans women, or some trans women, because I think a lot of people, everybody wants to be a good person. We all want people to feel safe and right. Everybody in our society have that. And I think when a lot of people who aren't initiated into this, who haven't seen some of the things that we might have seen, would think of a trans woman as someone who's presenting, who passes, as the parlance goes. But what we've seen out on some of these protests and people being interviewed is, frankly, sexualized men.
Yeah, I mean...
There was a thing today talking about how 99% of rapists are men. Yeah. That's true. It's 100% technically, legally. But what's not talked about is, as heterosexual men, and what's not talked about is what percentage of what we understand in our society to be trans women is heterosexual men.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's a kind of a battle within the gender critical movement over the phrase, I think the phrase is true trans, you know, and I get into trouble for supporting, you know, certain trans-identified men in this fight. But all the men I support, they admit they're men. You know, they don't believe that they've changed sex. They just say, well, I just feel comfortable in these clothes, and that's it. And most of them don't. In fact, I think all of them that I support don't use women's spaces.
Well, their rights don't conflict then.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, they deserve, everybody, of course, deserves safety. And as was pointed out by the Supreme Court, this doesn't affect trans rights. I know it's seeming, they're saying it does, but it doesn't.
Well, look at what happens when you suggest third spaces. They go nuts, because the truth is that, like they say, this every time I share, I have this list of 227 men who have been convicted of sexual offences, paedophilia, and other crimes against women, and all of it. When you think about it, that's 227 men, but their victims must be multiplied. You know what I mean? So we're not talking 227 victims, and it's people always say, well, why don't you list cis men? Why don't you talk about the cis men who do it? They are cis men. They're cis men dressed as women. It's that simple. And for some reason, all these idiots like, you know, Rory Stewart and all these people, they've convinced themselves that if you put on a dress, it's like you turn into Mr. Ben. It's like a magical kind of door into a different world.
I mean, these are some people. And then, of course, you know, trans people believing that they are the opposite sex is a real condition. And
I don't know.
Well, so, I mean... Well, it's a belief. No, sure. I'm not saying it has medical fact, but there are people who do genuinely believe that they are the opposite sex.
What did they do in caveman times? Did they wear the furs of the opposite sex? Do you know what I mean? I just don't see it as a... I mean, I do realise that some people are uncomfortable and they want to dress as women and all that sort of thing. But a lot of that is fetishistic. And I do not see why fetishistic men should be allowed in spaces with women. It's that simple.
No, I think that's fair enough. And if it's not fetishistic, I agree as well. That's the point now, is that women's spaces are now finally defined. I want to talk about, if you don't mind, talking about a little bit about the cost to you in terms of your work. I know you, and people know you as, frankly, if you don't mind me saying this, but one of the great comedy writers of our era, if not all time. Don't want to suck up too much. But when you go through something like this, and possibly now, hopefully, coming out the other side of it, are you changed forever? Are you planning on getting back to writing comedy? Can you write comedy? Can what's happened to you, these circumstances, enrich your comedy in any way? Or are we just too close to think about all of that?
I'm a little nervous about my ability to write comedy. A lot of my comedy came from a feeling that people are basically good and silly and nice, and they try to get things right and they screw up. But the last few years have been really shocking to me, I mean, I have to say, it's not just my colleagues in comedy, Arthur Matthews, who was my greatest friend and completely betrayed me by trying to get my name taken off the TED musical. That really hits hard, But also, I have to say, I've had a lot of trouble from, my own side in this. I had this kind of rosy view that because I was fighting the good fight, I would find a lot of solidarity. But unfortunately, there's certain things that happen that are, in some cases, as bad as what was done to me on the other side. I went to visit Magdalene Burns when she was dying. She was the YouTuber who, just a wonderful woman, brilliant speaker, communicator on these issues. And, my own side just kind of managed to, kicked up such a stink that I had to eventually ask the family to make a statement defending me. So it kind of confused me how much politics there are in this fight. And I still feel a little let down by it. And it's another reason why I want to get out of the UK, I mean, I'm being hounded by trans activists still, hounded by the police. And, as you know, Josh, you're very, obviously this affects you more than it does me, but I think the anti-Semitism in the UK has just gotten out of control. And I think it's the left, I think the left have just become the opposite of what they used to be. If we talk about, I remember someone was saying, I think it was the Battle of Cable Street, and we saw off the fascists. Well, now the same people would be giving them an escort, and I don't recognise the left. I don't recognise the country anymore. And, when I got here, it was 90s, it was Britpop, it was a really kind of creative, wonderful time. I think the arts are dead in the UK. When was the last time you saw a great sitcom? It wasn't Smuggy Queens. When was the last time you saw a band that kind of that made you want to get into a stadium with thousands of people and sing along? I feel like we've been running in place culturally since this idiotic movement started.
Five has reformed.
Huh?
Five has reformed.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's different. I'm staying.
But, with all of that, though, what has happened is speaking up for truth. And I'm just trying to put an optimistic spin on these things, because I think that many more people, even just people here this evening who've come out, people like yourself, standing up for truth is something that just didn't seem to happen in the 90s, or maybe we just trusted, or whatever it is. But now there's a cynicism there, but there's also there's activism, and I see that as a good thing. And I wonder if 20 years from now you look back and we're talking about you, and you look back at your career, and it's creator of Father Ted and creator of other sitcoms that you're going to come over that will make it sounds like maybe some horror films. But also someone who stood not just for women's rights, but stood for truth. And I think that's a journey that a lot of us are on now because of this. This one topic has led us to speak up.
Oh yeah, and I think the great thing about it is that we'll never take our rights for granted again. I think every woman who's here knows that now you have to man the barricades. Because a lot of men just despise women. And this has been, I think the trans movement, to a large degree, was a trolling exercise. I think there were a lot of men who just saw it as a chance to get back at the women who rejected them, the women who, they hate. And And I feel glad that, you know, it's kind of energised the feminist movement here. Turf Island has been a beacon for the rest of the world. And I know that's having an effect in America and elsewhere, you know. It's all crumbling now.
Well, you're a massive part of that. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, please, for Graham Linehan. Thank you very much. Next on Free Speech Nation, 40,000 mourners attended the funeral of Pope Francis. David Oldroyd-Bolt joins me next to talk about the historic event alongside a brand new book review, and we'll be having our social sensations still to come. Don't go anywhere. Thank you very much again, Graham. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
High pressure is in charge mainly across Europe at the moment, but its positioning is leading to some slightly different conditions. Out across Iberia, there's plentiful amounts of sunshine and a really lovely day to come tomorrow in particular. There are some showers, though, lingering around Italy, parts of the Balkans, just to watch out for. And there's quite a keen breeze developing from the Black Sea down through into the Aegean, so it is going to be quite fresh along some of those Greek islands. But with high pressure sticking around, it is going to be remaining fairly settled into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Amazing. I'm so pleased for him, and I think everybody in Northern Ireland. He did defeat an Englishman in the playoff.
He did.
Which is,
Justin Rose.
Yeah.
See, Justin Rose, not many people are going to talk about Justin Rose, well, apart from us.
Yes.
But Justin Rose, it talk about, you know, the bridesmaid and the bride, and it's been that with Rory. He's been the runner-up in the Masters twice. And 44 years old, and to do what he did and get a round of 66 was incredible. But Rory, see, people have written Rory off, and I've got to admit, even a couple of years ago, and I'm thinking, this is not going to happen for Rory, because it's this ultimate Grand Slam. Now, I think in golf, the Grand Slam is probably harder to win than any other sport, tennis, anything else. Because if you just look at the list, so this is basically to win the PGA, the American PGA, the US Open, the Open here, and the Masters. So this is to win the big four throughout your career. And only Gene Sarazen in 35, Ben Hogan in 1953, Gary Player in 1965, the legendary Jack Nicklaus in 66, and Tiger Woods in 2000. They're the only people to have done it. And if you think of all the great golfers over the years, nobody, apart from them, have managed it. And now Rory's managed it, and that makes him the greatest European golfer there has ever been.
Well, there's emotion you see there. I mean, you see what he so wants. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, he broke down in tears at the end, and it's not surprising because this is the thing. And it's 2011 was the last time he won a major. So at the time when he was much younger, they were coming left, right, and centre. And you think this kid's going to do everything. And then he was winning tournaments, but not those majors. And it was the Masters. That was the one he wanted. Well, give him a bus tour. You know, get the open top bus out, get him around, and
he will.
He'll deserve it. I mean, absolute hero.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A new book by E.F. Delderfield shows how a religion that has been part of our national story for over 1,700 years was instrumental in the creation and development of the English nation. I am now joined by historian and broadcaster David Oldroyd-Bolt. So, obviously, the religion is Islam.
Yep.
That was a joke.
And there may well be a book about Christianity by Delafield, but this one is by Bijan Amramani.
Oh, is this the Bijan?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what.
So,
well, there we go.
Look, everybody, this one, not the other one.
We just had Kelly J. Keenan and Graham Linehan, all right? We're smashing it. So, yes, this is this book. Now, I saw a review about this book. It's similar, to my understanding, to is it Dominion by Tom Holland?
Which, well, it's similar in that Dominion talked about the Christian residual impact on our entire Western civilization, going from the foundation of the religion until the present day.
Which isn't kind of acknowledged. I think people think that we just don't kill people because it's morally right, not understanding that these... our idea of basic morality really comes from a sort of Judeo-Christian background.
Yes, very much so. And specifically the Christian ethical and moral imperatives.
And the Judeo.
Whereas Bijan Amrani is talking about England specifically. He makes this clear in the introduction that this is a book about the growth of England, about our political structures, about the monarchy we have and why that is intrinsically Christian, about our arts, our culture, our parliamentary tradition. He makes the, I think, strong and unarguable case that were it not for Christianity, we would not be England. We may be a country that looked like and had some of the same institutions as the England of today, but we would not be that same people, that same race, nor that same political entity. And I think his case springs from the unarguable, again, decline in Christianity over the past 50 years. And indeed, in the past 50 years, you've seen church going halve. I mean, that's a calamitous drop-off when it had been steady for so many centuries. The one glimmer of hope seems to be from a poll that was out last week in the Times that showed that among young people, among the under 35s, church attendance is in fact growing, and particularly in evangelical churches and in the Catholic Church. And now some cynics put this down to migration, but it's in fact, when you look into the polling, it's not the case. They are seeking for a truth. You were talking with Graham Linehan just now about the woke movement's essential flaw being that it denies truth consistently and flagrantly. Well, I think that the young generation have realised that. They've realised that life cannot be lived on an entirely subjective basis, and that without eternal, and in this case holy truths, it's a hollow existence with no sense of the glorious or the metaphysical.
So they're looking for faith?
I think that's going to be what it comes down to.
And what does this book, what's the biggest takeaway then? Just the impact of Christianity as a whole, or are there specific things that it...
Well, the major historical point is that England is founded as a Christian nation. Before 597, when St. Gregory the Great sent St. Augustine here to evangelise and to convert the English, there were pockets remaining from the Roman occupation of Christianity, but it was seen as some kind of bizarre folklore and really had no status at all.
What existed alongside?
Alongside paganism. Yeah. That was the dominant elite religion and the dominant folk religion. What changes is that St. Augustine persuades King Ethelbert, and king at the time was more like a sort of chieftain. It didn't have the same sense, the same ontological sense that king does for us now with all the concomitant ideas. He persuaded him that this was the faith that he should follow if we wish not only to live and to reign in the temporal sense, but in the eternal sense. And from that comes everything. Absolutely everything that we know as English.
In terms of our institutions? And do you think, what about in terms of, I always sort of classify English people, there's a focus on fairness.
Yes, fair play, and you would say almost a proto-sense of egalitarianism, but I think it is much more of a Christian idea of fairness and of looking after the weak. The first shall be last, the last shall be first, a famous quotation from the Beatitudes. Now, I think you can't restrict that only to those who come from an English Christian background. But what you can say is that they would not be living in the country that is formed by that, were it not for these things. And I think equally you could say that our parliamentary tradition, with the absolutely necessary involvement of the church and of the monarch, comes from that state of being that exists from the 6th century onwards, that the church is at the heart of the nation.
OK, well, it sounds like a fascinating book. I'm definitely going to give it a read when you give me that copy. And just very quickly, obviously, the Pope's funeral. I imagine there's a huge amount of different rituals and artistry even that goes into what we've seen.
This was a much simpler funeral than previous popes have had. The great thing now about having had over a century of broadcasting is that you can see what a papal funeral looked like in the 1920s, when it was akin to that of an emperor. and an extraordinary degree of gravity and formality, of sincerity in the liturgy and in the music. The late Pope's funeral was never going to be that, because he himself was not that kind of Pope. He was always at pains to emphasize his simplicity and to say that he was not primus inter pares in that sense of being one who should stand above the rest. Of course, there was gravity. He was the Pope. He was the head of 1.2 billion Catholics on the planet. And there was beautiful music, but the music, for instance, was much simpler than that at the funeral of the last Pope to die in office, St. John Paul II. It was mostly Gregorian chant. There were some later bits of music, but it was all very much pared back. And the liturgy reflected that. We know that, alas, the late Pope was not very keen on the traditional forms of the Latin liturgy and did his best to suppress it, and that showed in his funeral. There were, of course, bits of Latin, but the majority of it was not of the old style of papal funeral. I think that's largely to be regretted on the basis that the Pope is supposed to stand above all time and temporal influence, to stand for God in eternity. If you start stripping it back to what is only present and popular, I think you lose something of the majesty of the Catholic Church. But that was the nature of the late Pope, and we will have to see what, after the conclave, comes next. And we can all of us Catholics, and I hope Christians more widely, pray that whoever it is perhaps a slightly less divisive figure.
Well, we'll see. And also, I've got to watch Conclave. Thanks for reminding me. That was historian and broadcaster David Oldroyd-Bolt. Thank you very much. 2 recommendations there. Watch Conclave and read God is an Englishman. Next on Free Speech Nation, it's time for our weekly social sensations. Plus, if anybody's got a question from the audience, we'll come back to that. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Bye.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Don't worry if you missed out on the sunshine this weekend. As we head into next week, even more of us will be seeing some blue skies. It will take its while, though, for northern areas of the UK. We do still have this rain band in play for this evening and overnight. It's quite a damp and breezy period to come for, particularly northwestern Scotland. Dry night elsewhere. Underneath the clearest skies of England and Wales, there will be some patchy mist and fog developing, and we could see a very patchy grass frost as we kick off Monday morning. There will be some low cloud and fog just lingering around the channel as we head throughout Monday, so some of that may just drift its way towards southern coasts of England at times, but inland, once any of that early mist and fog has cleared, there'll be plentiful amounts of sunshine to be greeted with. Still a touch of cloud for Northern Ireland, Northern England first thing, but all eyes are on this area of rain that will continue its journey ever so slightly northwards as we do head throughout Monday. So Caithness, Sutherland, parts of the Outer Hebrides and over towards Orkney will still have some rain at times during the day, but we will start to see the skies brightening for Northern Ireland, particularly County Down, parts of Northern England and southern and central Scotland as well. And then for the bulk of England and Wales, plentiful amounts of sunshine throughout the day, and it will be feeling rather warm out there. Highs between 20-24 degrees Celsius, well above our late April average. High pressure will be building in more widely as we head into the rest of next week, helping to push that weather front even further out of the way. So still the chance of a little bit of cloud and patchy rain for the likes of the Northern Isles during Tuesday, but really the vast majority of us are going to have a wonderful day out there. Plentiful amounts of sunshine, just a bit of a breeze around the far south coast here, but otherwise it certainly will be feeling again very warm, and temperatures will continue to climb in the sunshine that we do have. Mid to high 20s are very likely for many of us as we head towards the end of the week.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we take a look at what's been going viral this week on social media. First up's this video.
Peters, yeah, sweet. Remember me?
I remember you.
Long time no see, sir. Remember what you said to me the last time I saw you?
Yeah, I said you'd never amount to anything.
Yeah, you said I'd end up collecting bins. You said I'd be a bin man. I'm gonna eat your words. Huh? I'm a delivery driver. How about that, huh?
Again, cuz, yeah. Delivery driver?
Yes, sir.
For who?
For a prestigious company, mate. Amazon. Come on.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we go.
That's worse than being a bin man, isn't it? At least a bin man are adding to society.
Kerry, we dream of confronting our nightmare teachers from the past. This is part of a longer video.
Okay. Was it his teacher?
It was his teacher.
Oh, really?
And Peters, come over here, Peters.
That's brilliant.
And they basically confronting him. They said, you said I'd never amount to anything. And then Peters is like, starts dissing his car. It's very funny.
You're right, very, very fast. Years ago, we had a careers teacher in school who, at the time, asked me what career I wanted, and I was doing magic tricks. I said I wanted to be a magician. He said, you need to get some kind of qualifications and so on. Years later, I met him at a redundancy party where he was being made redundant and I was doing magic tricks for him. And it was the most glorious moment ever. So,
Have you seen this full video at all?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I'll retweet it or something later. Because
yeah, I know what I'll be doing later.
It's very funny. But did you ever have a teacher that you wish you could sort of say, look at me now, I'm on telly?
All of them. No, anything to do with one's past is scary, isn't it? School reunions. But that guy's name.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Normally, I'm not a big fan of people with beards that. I don't know if you can tell, but I thought he smashed it. It was very funny. Okay, let's have a look at the.
Despite his beard.
Well, if you see, watch the longer video. It's very focal point of the video.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next video then.
喇叭都3斤多，你说，啊，真高级，片儿都拉冒烟，走啊走。
So this is a dog that ate a toy and is now trying to get into the women's toilets.
I hope none of my teachers are watching this.
No, exactly. Yeah.
That poor dog.
That poor dog. Yeah.
I hope it was a ball.
Yes, I hope it was a ball. That's a. But what do you think about this, Kerry? Do you want to do it to penguins?
I think it's great. I think it's great for the family. They're never going to lose their dog, are they? So easy. Always.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And they won't step in it.
That's terrible.
Well, you wouldn't, because you'd see it flashing.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. Thank you very much to my panel, Cressida Wetton and Kerry Marks. And a big thank you, of course, to my brilliant guests this evening who joined us in the studio. If you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can. You go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That's next. Don't forget, Headliners is on every night at 11 p.m. That's a late-night paper preview show where comedians talk to you through the next day's top news stories. Thank you very, very much for watching Free Speech Nation. Goodbye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Don't worry if you missed out on the sunshine this weekend. As we head into next week, even more of us will be seeing some blue skies. It will take its while, though, for northern areas of the UK. We do still have this rain band in play for this evening and overnight. It's quite a damp and breezy period to come for, particularly northwestern Scotland. Dry nights elsewhere, underneath the clearest skies of England and Wales, there will be some patchy mist and fog developing, and we could see a very patchy grass frost as we kick off Monday morning. There will be some low cloud and fog just lingering around the channel as we head throughout Monday, so some of that may just drift its way towards southern coasts of England at times, but inland, once any of that early mist and fog has cleared, there'll be plentiful amounts of sunshine to be greeted with. Still a touch of cloud for Northern Ireland, Northern England first thing, but all eyes are on this area of rain that will continue its journey ever so slightly northwards as we do head throughout Monday. So Caithness, Sutherland, parts of the Outer Hebrides and over towards Orkney will still have some rain at times during the day. But we will start to see the skies brightening for Northern Ireland, particularly County Down, parts of Northern England and southern and central Scotland as well. And then for the bulk of England and Wales, plentiful amounts of sunshine throughout the day, and it will be feeling rather warm out there. Highs between 20-24 degrees Celsius, well above our late April average. High pressure will be building in more widely as we head into the rest of next week, helping to push that weather front even further out of the way. So still a chance of a little bit of cloud and patchy rain for the likes of the northern